a registered dietitian and personal trainer here at M Health Fairview, Ways to Wellness, and excited to be here tonight on this beautiful day. I don't know if you can see the natural sunlight coming in. We have a window in this room, so I get excited about a nice day here. But we're wanting to just make sure that we're connecting with everybody as we kind of go through this all together, and making sure that we're taking time for you and kind of to focus in on some self-care here. So this nutrition class is sponsored by the Fairview Foundation. So I want to give a big shout out to them. They're sponsoring all of our free classes that we're offering every week. So next week's schedule is coming out soon, and it's filled with cooking classes, fitness, meditation, and nutrition. So thanks to the Fairview Foundation. So just a few housekeeping things. So like we said, just making sure that you're joining with audio, but that you are muting your microphone, and then just keep the video off for now, at least as we go through, just because it's easier than for participants for it to stay on the main screen that we'll have the slides on. So we're going to get right to the information. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. And let's see, there we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see my slides. If you can't, message in the chat to me that you can't. But today we're talking about functional nutrition. So, and we call it food for thought and conversation, because we know that there's power in community. And in even when we can't all be together in the same room, there's power in all being on here together and having similar values for health and nutrition and kind of similar goals that we're working on. And so our goal with this class is to kind of go through high level, the basics or the foundational concepts of functional nutrition, and to have some conversation around it, and answer some questions that you might have too. So we're going to spend about 30 minutes here looking at some information and talking through it. And like I said, as we go, feel free to chat in and let me know if you have any questions. So our agenda today will be to look at what is functional nutrition. I know that some of you are here as part of our functional medicine program, and that's great. And I know that some of you are here and you maybe have never heard of functional medicine before, and that's great too. So wherever you're at today, hopefully you'll learn something new or be inspired or kind of remember something that you've learned before and that you want to start implementing. So we'll be going through macronutrients and phytonutrients, mindful eating, and a high level of kind of just gut health and how we can support the gut microbiome. And it is important to remember that any information we're going through here isn't intended to provide medical advice, but is something that you definitely want to bring up with your physician and the rest of your care team to determine kind of what's right for you. But we'll definitely go through some information that I hope is helpful. So before we look at any more info, I like to do this with every group class that I teach. And so let's just take a few minutes to do it right now. And I'll do it with you. I have my pen and paper right here. So we want to just take a few minutes to kind of slow down and reflect on and write down, if possible, or put it in the notes in your phone, or just reflect in your mind if you can't write it somewhere right now. We want to go through the day and kind of do a 24-hour food recall. That's what we call it in dietitian world, is we just want to look at what you're eating and drinking and how you're feeling with it. So we'll start with writing down the time that you woke up. So this might be the same time every day. It might vary. If you want to do a typical day or when you woke up today, that's just fine. Don't overthink it. And then you want to think of the first thing that you ate or drank. So I know some of my people are thinking right away, coffee, 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 right? That might be the first thing we think about and eat or drink. So if that's you, go ahead and put that down. If not, whatever you're having first. Maybe you're a breakfast skipper. Maybe you aren't hungry right away. That's okay. We're not judging any of this. You're not going to have to share it with anyone. Just looking at what you typically do. So after your first time of eating, go ahead and think about the next time that you're eating. So again, could be kind of mid-morning snack, could be the lunch hour. Maybe you don't get to eat during the day for some reason. Just being aware of that and writing that down. So I'm trying to remember what I had for lunch today. Oh yeah, Chef Jeremy's soup. I got lucky, and he did a cooking class today. So I'm writing that down here at leftover soup. And then thinking of the next time, so mid-afternoon, maybe we're getting to around this time, maybe you had a snack or anything, and writing down what you might have for the dinner meal or supper meal. Okay, and then I want you to just write down what your energy level is today. So 1 through 10, 1 being pretty poor energy or low energy, 10 being ecstatic and very energetic, just ranking it, being aware, and then writing down movement that you've had today or that you might have. Hopefully you're going to get outside at some point this beautiful day. And then thinking about how your sleep was yesterday or last night. How many hours did you sleep? And how was the quality of your sleep? And then we get to the supporting and non-supporting relationships. And sometimes this one's surprising for people to see, but this one really just means, you know, the people that you're surrounded by throughout each day, are they supporting of your actions you're taking for your health goals, or do they kind of give you a hard time? You know, even if they're your closest people, sometimes when we're making health changes, they can give us a hard time. And so it doesn't mean they're a bad person, but we just want to think about and reflect on who's really encouraging you with your health goals and who's maybe not as encouraging. And then lastly, emotional or spiritual. So just kind of writing down how you're feeling today, emotionally or spiritually. And again, there's no right or wrong. So keep that close by. That's your 24-hour food recall with a little bit more than just that. And all those things impact your body and how your body uses the nutrition that you eat. So how you're moving, how you're sleeping, how you're feeling stress-wise, the people that you're surrounded by impact how and what you're eating. So that's why we have all of that encompassed in one. I'm just going to make sure we're good on the chat. Looks like there's no chat. Okay, we're good. All right. Just want to make sure I didn't leave anybody out here. So moving on, we're getting to the foundations of functional nutrition. So what is functional nutrition? And my training here is through the Institute for Functional Medicine, as well as our physician, Dr. Clevenger's, some of her training, she has a lot, and our other dietitian as well. So this is where a lot of this information is coming from. You'll see that kind of sourced throughout here. So it's using food to maximize our potential for health and to prevent or reverse dysfunction. So thinking of food as more than just whether or not it's kind of good or bad, right? I think the diet kind of culture out there, mentality for a while has really got us thinking about cutting things out, not eating this, not eating that, this is good or bad. And we really want to think of it more as what can we add in that's going to help maximize our potential for health and to prevent or reverse dysfunction. So looking at what might be out of balance in the body and seeing how certain nutrients can help with balancing things out and supporting our cellular functions. And really important thing to remember is that it's individualized. So there's no single right way that applies to everyone. And I think sometimes that can be, again, surprising for people to hear, because there's everybody is hearing about nutrition, right? And so you might often hear somebody say, oh, everybody should do paleo, or everybody should do keto, or everybody should do vegan, or all these different food styles. And there's really not one right way that's going to work for everyone. So just know that, you know, your body is different from your siblings or your parents or your relatives, and from the person that you sit next to at work, or that you come in contact to anywhere. It's really unique for you, and so each person will have a different kind of food plan that works right for them. So it's a source of energy, health, and connection. These are kind of the main concepts of functional nutrition. So next we're looking at food and connection. And again, something that I think we forget about, right, is food's not just calories, or what is good or bad, or even it's not just energy. Food really connects us socially, to friends and family, and during traditions and celebrations, and helps with cultural traditions and things that are important to us in that way. And I think it's good to reflect on healthy ways that food can help with connection, even as we're maybe all away from each other right now. You know, we have the virtual classes we're doing, or maybe you're just doing virtual video calls with friends or family as you're cooking, because you're excited about traditional food that you're doing that you guys have shared. So knowing that that's good, and that holidays are good, and the traditions we have with holidays are a good thing, and food really helps bring us together. So it can be a way of bonding, togetherness, and then enjoyment. So making sure that we're enjoying the food that we're eating. And so that's definitely one to keep reflecting on as well. Oops, and I went ahead. So we have our 3 basic elements of food. And the first one, as you can see, is macronutrients. So carbohydrates, protein, and fats. Now, if you've probably heard of the macronutrients before, and you've probably seen all these different food plans out there, really focusing on one carbohydrate or one macronutrient being good or bad or better. And we're really wanting to make sure that we're getting all 3 of the macronutrients. And you know, water really is a macronutrient too. So making sure that we're getting these 3 plus water consistently is the functional nutrition approach. So what are they? They're the chemical compounds that provide humans with energy and essential nutrients. And they're required basically daily. So these are the things that we want to be consuming daily, and getting a variety of different types of. One simple way to put it is making sure that we're getting carbohydrates, protein, and fats every meal and snack. And so there's definitely some different lists or ideas that I can provide to you via email, and we can talk about it at the end too. But really looking at, especially with those snacks, or even like breakfast, right? Standard American breakfast, we're doing a lot of carbohydrates. So maybe let's take a second here and either think about or look back at your 24-hour food recall, aka what you just wrote down, and think about if you're getting the carbohydrate, protein, or fat every meal and snack. So where are the carbohydrates going to come from? First, they're going to come from, first thing that comes to mind usually for people is like our bread, pasta, processed carbohydrates, right? But that's not the only place we get those carbohydrates. We're also getting them from fruits, vegetables, dairy, legumes. Many foods have carbohydrates, and they're all great. And then we want to think of protein. So again, protein, first thing we think of a lot of the time is meat or eggs or beans, and those are all definitely protein sources. But we're also going to get some too from from our plant sources, and just even like Brussels sprouts have protein. So making sure that we're getting, again, carbohydrates and protein, and then healthy fats. So healthy fats, we're thinking of nuts, oils, seeds, and even different fruits too. And so, again, really high level, but just thinking of making sure that we're getting all three at every meal and snack, that's going to help with balancing energy levels and balancing blood sugar levels, which is super important for inflammation and chronic conditions. And then we have the micronutrients, so vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. So vitamins and minerals, I'm sure that we've all heard of. We're thinking of all of our different colorful foods for all of these. The phytonutrients are the really big focus in functional nutrition. And so if any of you that I've seen in person, I know that we've looked at the phytonutrient guide, and I'm going to show that to you again here shortly. But the key is the variety. We've all heard, you know, eat the rainbow, and I'm not talking Skittles or whatever their slogan is. We want to make sure that we're getting a variety of colorful plant foods. And those phytonutrients are the plant compounds that have a positive effect on our health. That's really where we think of kind of food is medicine, is they have that kind of medicinal, sorry, I'm seeing the chat things pop up here, components of to our health. So these phytonutrients work on a cellular level in our body to help with different processes to make sure that they're functioning properly. And each color of food, of these foods, has different phytonutrients in them. So you can see on here it says aim to have 9 to 13 servings per day. So let's take a look at, there we go. Move this window, it's saying. So here's the phytonutrient spectrum guide. Now you might want to take a picture of this. Let's see, we have somebody I'm admitting. Thanks guys for being patient as I'm learning how to make sure I'm admitting everybody in here. So looking at this phytonutrient guide might be something you want to take a picture of, and I can also send this out after if you're interested. But this is a really nice thing to refer to. Again, we want to keep it simple as we're looking at the phytonutrients and everything with functional nutrition. So figuring out how you can add in some of these foods that you like on here that you maybe haven't done in a while. So just take a few seconds here to look through the list and identify foods that you like or love on here. Oh, and I have a message. Angela says she'd love to have that email. It's hard to see it on the phone. Yep, I can definitely send these slides out after so you can refer to this. I think it's a nice one to keep close by as you're kind of planning ahead for the next day for meals or snacks or the week. And again, it's really simple. Oh, and Karen says, I thought corn is a grain, not a veggie. You know what? These aren't just vegetables. I should say that these are just all plant foods, right? So, so you'll see fruits on here too. We're not just looking at veggies. I maybe have accidentally just said veggies, but we're really focusing on all plants. And so you can see big picture on the right, what the different big picture benefits are from each color. And I actually, in a class next week, I'm going to dive into each color a little bit more. You'll see that come out. It's the anti-inflammatory class. But what you want to focus on now is just, again, getting a variety of colors. So thinking about your week and thinking about which foods or colors you always get. So for me, I know I'm always getting red. I love apples. And if I could just focus or just eat that all the time, I would for my plants. But I know to get more than that. and try to plan in all the other colors too. And so you might be thinking, this is so simple, what is this really helping? But remember, we want it to be simple. Really just focusing on adding in more. And so this kind of comes back to the light bulb moment that I witness all the time of the fact that we should enjoy our food. Whoa, I know, it's not something that we see a lot of when we're looking at and hearing about all these food plans and different things out there. Never really talks about enjoying our food, but you should enjoy your food, and that's our goal, is looking at that list, what foods you enjoy on there, how can we add those in, and then how can we come up with flavorful ways that they can taste really good too, so you're even enjoying them even more. So one thing to think about is what are your favorite foods? So that doesn't even mean the plants. You know, to me right away, peanut butter comes to mind. Guilty. No guilt associated with that. But thinking about what your favorite foods are. It could be your favorite cuisines. Maybe you love to get Mexican food, or you love to get Italian food, or different styles of eating. Maybe your favorite meats or animal proteins. Whatever it is, you could even write it down if you're able to. But just think about that, because you want to plan your favorite foods in often, and plan in those nutritious foods often, and know that again, there's not a bad food out there, but we want to be making sure that you're enjoying those. Okay, so those are kind of the basic concepts. We're going to move to mindful eating, and just to mention too, so some of you know Dr. Clevenger. She's our functional medicine physician here, but she really helped with determining what's going to be in this functional nutrition class, and these are the things that she really feels as a physician are important when it comes to nutrition, and I definitely agree. This is one of the big concepts. And so with mindful eating, again, it can feel really simple, but we see a big difference when people start implementing this, especially when it comes to digestive symptoms. Oh, we have a question here. Do you concentrate on the heart colors if you are interested in heart disease? You know what? Yes, well, let's see. Let's go back to that for a second. I still think you should focus on all of the colors when it comes to heart disease, because all of these colors are anti-inflammatory. And we know that there's a connection with inflammation and different contributing factors to heart disease. So you can see that anti-inflammatory is listed next to almost all of these. So I would really still focus on a variety and enjoying the variety. Okay, great questions. So we're going to mindful and intuitive eating next. I'm just checking how we are on time here. So mindful eating is the process of paying attention to your eating experience without judgment. And I know you guys can read this. But then we have intuitive eating, which is kind of the broader umbrella, which is looking at the relationship that you have with food, with your mind, body, and food. And so it's really focusing for both of them on listening to your body's natural instincts for hunger and fullness. And gosh, when our world is moving so fast all the time, sometimes that can be hard to do, right? So if you're able to slow down at all during this time that we're going through together, this might be a really good time to practice some mindful eating skills, right? So focusing on the positives, I think it could be a fun thing to try. So why do we want to focus on mindful eating? So there's many reasons, but one of the reasons is how our body is digesting and absorbing the food that we're eating and how we feel after that. So this is a picture of the autonomic nervous system, or a graphic, and you'll see on one side we have the sympathetic nerves, and on the other side we have the parasympathetic nerves or nervous system. And you might recognize this more as our fight or flight system or rest and digest system. So they come together to form the autonomic nervous system, which is part of our peripheral nervous system. So why in the world is this important in functional nutrition? And again, it's because of the digestion piece and absorption piece that we're talking about it today. So that sympathetic nervous system on the right side is going to be related to your fight or flight system, or that's another name for it. And parasympathetic on the left is the rest and digest system. So that's when our body's kind of restoring and healing. And so both are super important. You know, some stress is good. Justin, our life coach here, always mentions that. You know, some stress is actually good for us, but we don't want to have chronic stress all the time. And that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, is really meant to help us in a time of stress or need. You know, when we're running from a predator or we have a stressful moment, it can help. You can see on the right-hand side there, when we look at kind of the stomach and the gallbladder, intestines, it's inhibiting the activity of our stomach, inhibiting our gallbladder, inhibiting the activity of our intestines, and that's helpful usually in a true reason that we would need our sympathetic nervous system. Then we have the parasympathetic, that's stimulating our activity of our stomach, stimulating the gallbladder, and stimulating activity of our intestines, and that's our rest and digest mode. And so when it comes to mindful eating, oftentimes when we're not mindful eating, it's when we are in a busy day, right? Maybe we're right from work to the car and we're running around town, dropping kiddos off or meeting people or whatever we might be doing, activities all the time. Maybe it's a busy work day and we don't really have time to slow down and eat. And so if we're in that kind of sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight mode, feeling any stress or just go, 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 our body really can't digest the food as well, which means we're not going to be absorbing the food as well. And then we're not going to actually get all the benefits of the healthy foods that we're taking the time to think about and plan and cook or pick up or be mindful about, right? And so what we want to do is make sure that we're taking some time to slow down as much as we can and be in that more parasympathetic nervous system and be able to rest and digest our food well. And so, let's see if it'll move for me. Oh yeah, we have these here. So I don't know, does anybody feel like this kind of reminds them of themselves? I just love these. These we've had for a while on our saved picture system here at Ways to Wellness. But sometimes, some days can feel like this, right? Where we're just go, 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 stressed. And then we're kind of eating quick. And so what we want to start to do is start to implement some of these simple tools for mindful eating. And so the nice thing about it is it's something you can really do anywhere for eating and just for shifting out of that sympathetic nervous system over to that parasympathetic nervous system so that rest and digest. And the one first way that I want to mention is by doing some deep breathing. And so we're going to practice right now. So if you're driving in a vehicle, don't close your eyes. But if you're not, go ahead and close your eyes. And we're just going to do a simple breath together. You can place your hands on your rib cage or your belly. And you just want to inhale through your nose. Try to feel the ribs and belly expanding. Fill up even more. And then exhale through your mouth. Try one more time. Inhale, fill up. And exhale. That always feels good, doesn't it? So just doing that before you eat can be one way to help shift your body into that rest and digest mode, and then it's ready to digest that food well. And so here's a few simple tips. When can you eat mindfully during your day? So again, referring back to your list, thinking about what you had today and how fast you were maybe eating throughout the day or how mindful you were. And we just want to identify where we're at now and then choose a time to start implementing. So ways you can do it are cooking for yourself, looking at your food and thinking about where it came from. Did it come from the store? Did it come from the cupboard? Did it come from a farm? You know, it can really be any range that you want to do. putting away your distractions, turning off the television, putting the phone to the side. And then another big one is eating at the desk. So I will tell you, this is a tough one for myself and our team here. We want to be going and eating. So one thing that I try to do is just to simply turn the chair, and then you're just not facing the desk. Again, really simple things, but whatever it is, just turning away for a second so you can look at your food. You know, use all your senses, smell it, touch it, really take a second to taste it in your mouth, look at it, think about it. If you can hear anything with it, great. Like really using all of those. Doing that deep breathing, even if you're on a busy work day, again, or a busy day at home, wherever you're at, just doing that deep breathing technique. No one even has to know. And then using all your senses. I love this one. Chewing 30 times each bite. I love doing this one when I'm out to eat with people or whoever I'm with, which is probably just a dorky dietitian thing. But a lot of people can't do it, or they have to really try, because we can be really used to eating fast, right? So just have some fun with that one. Try to count your chews and see how many chews you can get. That's going to help with digestion and absorption too. And that can even help, you know, if you ever go out to eat, or if you had something to eat and you get a stomach ache after, sometimes just implementing these practices can help with reducing some of that. And then listen to your body. Okay, so we're going to move on to optimizing gut function. Let's see here. We have a few things in the comments I'm going to look at quick. I was told that tomatoes were bad for you if you have rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, so real quick on that one. So they can be a trigger for rheumatoid arthritis symptoms for some people. That doesn't mean that they're a trigger for everyone, but they're in the nightshade category. And nightshades can be a trigger for some people with rheumatoid arthritis. So that's definitely something that I meet with people on one-on-one, and we can look at different elimination protocols for that. But tomatoes aren't a bad food. They can be a trigger, and I can definitely, you know, we can chat more too if you have questions on that. And then somebody said, busy, what about not busy, bored, a lot of time on hand during a lockdown? Yeah, so that's the other thing with mindful eating is, yeah, sometimes, especially now, schedules are very different. This can be a good time to try to really implement some of those mindful eating techniques, where even if you put like a Post-it note up and just says eat mindfully, and it's in the kitchen to help with kind of triggering us to remember to do that. Because sometimes, especially if we're at home a lot, we go into the kitchen or we're near it, or the food's there, you know, our environment really sets us up for how we're eating. So if we're around the kitchen a lot, it can be easy to just be kind of mindlessly eating because we're just there. So keep that in mind for what you have around your house too, and what you have available. And doesn't mean to not get certain things maybe, but more of what can you add in from like that phytonutrient list, or from the produce section or trail mix section, or, you know, bulk nuts section, whatever it is, but things that are going to be filling you up with nutrients too. Okay, we're going to keep moving just so I can keep us not too late here on time. So optimizing gut function is another big key piece of functional medicine and functional nutrition. And so what in the world does football have to do with that? And I realize too that sometimes, since all sports are canceled, this is actually a really sad picture to have in here, so I'm sorry about that. But the reason that this picture is in here is because when we think of optimizing gut function, we think of all the different things that go on in our gut. So our gut is very complex. And where the football field comes in is that our intestines, our human intestines, are actually filled with these villi, kind of finger-like projections. I like to do this little dance, the finger-like projections. And that's how we're digesting and absorbing our nutrients. So if you think of the food kind of swimming down through, digesting through our intestines, we have these microvilli, and then the food nutrients start to go through those microvilli. They get to these junctions in our gut that should be nice and strict and only allow certain things through. Those microvilli and the little crypts in between them in our intestines, when they're spread out, the surface area of those would be as almost as big as a football field, almost as long. And so it's kind of crazy to think about in our intestines. If we were to look at the surface area again of all those microvilli that are just crammed in there, that would be almost as long as a football field in us. So cool, right? And so it's so complex, and there's so much that our gut is doing to regulate our immune system, to regulate that contributes to many systems in our body. And that's where the food comes in, and what we're eating and drinking, and anything that we're taking in our outside environment that's going to be going through our gut into our system makes a huge difference in all these complexities that are going on. So the gut microbiome. So what is it? So the microbiome in the gut is the collection of microbes living in our intestines. We have many microbiomes throughout our body. Now that's just the bacteria, fungi, yeast, viruses, and more on different areas in our body. So another one that's getting more attention lately is our skin microbiome, and how can we help that? So with functional medicine and functional nutrition, we're really focusing on optimizing the gut microbiome's function. And so all these little microbes have a big impact on, you can see in that picture there, that's a different picture of our microvilli besides little microvilli dance. But there's lots of processes that help with digestion and absorption, and getting the nutrients from our food when we have the right microbes and the good microbes flourishing in our gut, and when we don't have an overabundance of kind of the bad or the harmful bacteria or microbes, not just bacteria. So this is something that begins building at birth. You know, from the minute we're born, our immune system starts building in our gut, and we're exposed to certain things. It impacts our entire body. So again, our gut is very connected to our brain, especially in things in our mood, anxiousness, depression. There's lots of different research going on right now too with different microbes and how those can make a big impact in helping with treating things. And then beneficial bacteria help with digestion, absorption, mood, protection against infection. So again, there's a huge immune system connection here too. So there is some research that's gone on and associated beneficial bacteria with lower rates of obesity, diabetes, of course, different gut diseases and symptoms. And there's so much more going on to help with concluding really like specifically which strains of different bacteria or different microbes could help more specifically. And so we know that helping the gut and improving our gut health right now and finding the balance for ourselves will help and should help with many symptoms or conditions we're experiencing. But I'm just excited to see as the research continues what we figure out or what we find out from the research and how we can really tailor it. So the microbiome changes in response to its environment. So again, it's responding to everything we're taking in and our body is taking in. So stress. When we're stressed, our body can be giving off these different hormones and chemicals in our gut that can lead to different responses to food. I mean, think about, we are feeling very stressed. Some people will say that their gut actually feels like it slows down. Some people will say that they can't keep anything in them, right? It's just going right through. And so that's kind of one example that is more common, but there's other different things that can happen in the gut just from stress, surgery, illness, trauma, different eating patterns, you know, eating the same foods over and over, and different medications. Let's see here. I think I just skipped one. No, I didn't. Okay, so how can we start optimizing gut function? First, we want to start with increasing prebiotic foods. Now, some of you might have thought that was a typo at first, and I promise it's not. The prebiotic foods are what feed the probiotics, and so they help stimulate the growth of that helpful bacteria. And so here's a few examples or more common examples And again, these foods are also pretty high in fiber, and they're going to help with feeding the probiotics. So, we can be eating a lot of probiotic foods or taking a probiotic supplement or whatever we might be doing to help our gut. But if we're not getting enough prebiotic foods, it's unlikely that we're going to see a huge difference from those probiotics. So prebiotic foods, take a picture of it. If you want, I can send it to you after. And we just want to think about, again, adding more of those in. How can we have these foods regularly? And then increasing probiotic foods. So those are the live beneficial organisms in food that benefit human health. Often, most of them are bacteria that we use or know about right now. There are some beneficial probiotics that are yeasts and that are actually helpful, especially when it comes to helping with diarrhea. So again, we're learning more and more, but their benefits, there's benefits to having multiple strains of these and a variety of different probiotic foods. So fermented foods is a good way to get those probiotics. And here's the list of really the most common. Not all fermented foods are going to have probiotics in them, but most of these should. You'll see, and of course, I'm sure you've heard of yogurt having probiotics. Most people mention that one. And sometimes it's enough to make a difference, and sometimes it's not, depending on how much your body needs and how often you're eating it. So I think really focusing on this variety of probiotic foods is a good thing to start with, and consistency. And then last thing with gut health is identifying trigger foods. And so I recommend seeing a health practitioner to help guide this for sure, because we don't want to cut out foods. We want to focus on what to add, right? But there's a protocol to follow to actually see if any food is specifically a trigger for you. That would make it more worth your time, so you're, again, not just having to cut out. But this is a list of common trigger foods that can have an impact on a gut symptom or on gut health that has a different symptom. And so looking at that there, again, these are not bad foods. Not every single food is a trigger for everyone, but these are common trigger foods. And some of you might already have experienced cutting some of these out and seeing if they're triggers. Or if you haven't, you might already have a sense of the food that's a trigger for you. I'll hear it all the time from people. I know I don't feel well after I have this food, and I eat it all the time, but I'm ready to try seeing how I feel without it. And so we do some kind of elimination protocol with that, or some kind of experimenting, I was going to say, but just a short-term elimination protocol to figure out if that is a trigger food or not. And so that's one example. But again, I would do this guided just because it can make it more worth your time and less confusing. So we want to increase prebiotics, increase probiotics, and then be mindful of which foods you feel good when you eat and which foods you maybe don't feel good after you eat. And then we can start to identify some patterns with that. So I know that we're going right over on time here, so time to take action. So today we looked at macronutrients and phytonutrients, big picture, mindful eating techniques, and optimizing gut function. And these are all helpful for really most things that conditions or symptoms, and even with reducing inflammation too. So what we want to do is reflect on your 24-hour recall and identify any small gaps in your regular day. So maybe you look at your day and realize that you don't have any prebiotic foods, or maybe you realize that you are not eating mindfully ever, and that's okay. It's just where we're at right now. Or maybe you realize that you don't have any colors, you have one color in your food. And just start with choosing one action step from the information we looked at today, and just start there, one thing. And we just want to be consistent with that one thing to see the difference that can happen over time. And so it's not too complex. Let's keep it simple and consistent for those results. So that's all of the slides that I have for you today. And we're right at the time here. Hopefully you can still see me. So let's go through any questions that you might have. I'm going to find my chat box. Here we are. I hope that you guys felt like this was helpful. If you want to put a few chat questions in, please feel free to. And I can answer some of them right now. I can also send you this email if you'd like after. Maybe just put a in the chat box if you do want me to email this to you. I will, the slides, and you can always answer back to that. And I do have all your emails. I know our system has it, so I'll be able to find that easily as long as your name is listed on here. So I'll give you just a few minutes to put in any questions, or let me know if you want this emailed. Otherwise, thank you so much for being on here today and taking your time to hang out with me and to talk about nutrition, or for you to listen about nutrition. I hope that you found something helpful. And even though it's not super complex, right? Let's keep it simple, and we hopefully went through something in a new way for you that feels like it makes sense too, and something that you can implement. All right, and I'm just looking at these messages here. All right, I'll get those emails sent out. Nobody has any questions, then I'm going to just end our meeting here. If I could figure out how. Let's see. All right. Resume. And let's see, do you teach class 2? So we have a second class. We have a second class with anti-inflammation, not with functional nutrition, but next week I'll have an anti-inflammatory class, number 2. So this week we did the first one, it was about healthy fats. Next week it's going to be diving more into the phytonutrients, looking at each color and highlighting a few of the specific phytonutrients in those. And then I'm also doing an intro to mindful eating class that's just focusing on mindful eating, and intro to functional medicine program on Wednesday. So that will talk about our functional medicine program here with Dr. Clevenger and go through some information about what functional medicine is. Our class list is coming out soon too, so before I actually hop off here, keep that in mind. We have these free classes, again, thanks to the Fairview Foundation for sponsoring that, and we'll have a ton of free fitness classes virtually next week. Jeremy's doing 5 virtual cooking classes next week, which is awesome. He can send you the list ahead of time and you can get all the stuff to make it with him. And then we have mindfulness and meditation also next week. And Shannon, our new life coach, is starting really cool group class for that. And then our new dietitian, Dana, will be doing a virtual class on fiber, I believe a few weeks out too. So keep watching your emails, and we hope to see you back on here. Thanks so much for being here, and stay well.